Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of The Work on YouTube. I'm your host Rompe, and a happy belated Thanksgiving and a happy holidays to all you guys on YouTube. So, there's not a lot to really talk about in the baseball world because not a lot has happened, but a few things has happened. Notably, the Phillies saying they're broke. Well, Middleton is saying the Phillies are broke, but a lot of people in and around the Phillies are they're saying it's not true. And then there's some proof that was put out there online saying that it wasn't true, showing that it wasn't true. So don't really know what to think when it comes to that Phillies situation, but you gotta believe Bryce Harper isn't happy. So we'll get into that. Also, the Blue Jays are trying to make a run at George Springer. Ultimately, I have an idea of where I think he'll go, so we'll get into that as well. And then lastly, are the Mets really having trouble finding someone to be in charge? Well, we're going to start off with the Phillies. So, over the weekend, it came out that a reporter put out a report saying that the Phillies lost somewhere around $2 billion because of COVID and not having fans in the stands. So basically, the revenue that they lost, if they would have had the fans and stuff like that, would have, been somewhere around $2 billion. I don't really know how to crunch up those numbers, but in the newspaper, I don't know where the newspaper was from, but there was a newspaper article that said that the Phillies didn't lose $2 billion. They only lost $145 million in 2020 due to COVID. And so it really makes you think who's telling the truth and who's not telling the truth. Well, this is significant because in that report that said that the Phillies lost $2 billion, also stated they won't be going after JT Realmuto. Yes, that JT Realmuto, who they traded their best pitching prospect, Sixto Sanchez, for, and now they're not going to have either one. So that, my friends, is what I call you effed up. Somebody messed up in the front office, and then there was this whole, apparently Theo Epstein didn't want to go to them. He didn't want to interview with them. There was no interest with them. But then again, the entire time, I believe he just wants to take a year off, really regather himself. 2020 has taken a lot out of a lot of people. I'm pretty sure he's exhausted as well. And it was time. He said he wanted to be with the Cubs for 10 years. That's usually the amount of time he takes. But he just wants to be home. So he's going to be home for a year. And then after that, we'll see where he goes. So I don't know if there was any truth to that rumor or not. But the Phillies not going after JT Realmuto after they gave up a lot to get him, that doesn't look good. The optics in that whole thing doesn't look good. But as a Met fan, for us, good. Better for us. We don't have to rush to to go and back up the Brinks truck for JT. Now we're sitting at the negotiating table and we're talking numbers. We're talking real numbers now. We're not just, sitting there. Okay, so what do we have to counter offer? Okay, they're offering you this, so now we'll offer you that, so you don't have to go with them kind of situation. Now, we don't know if there's other clubs that's going to jump in, maybe the Yankees, maybe, another club. I just don't see many clubs out there there are a bunch of clubs with a need for catchers, but to back up that kind of money for JT, I just think the writing is there for the Mets. And this can come down to him only getting a 4-year deal with the Mets, somewhere like what this guy got, Yasmani Grandal got from the White Sox. I can see that, maybe a little more, but I could definitely see maybe 4 years, somewhere around 125 million. But I mean, let's see what happens. But I wouldn't go more than 4 years right now, especially look at the market and how much money's out there. So let's see who we're going to compete against. But he's definitely plan A for the Mets. Plan B for the Mets. A report came out that they are in talks, in discussions. They're kicking tires. They're really having conversations, letting James McCann's representatives and agents know that they're interested in talking a deal. So there's movement. But nothing is happening until the December 2nd non-tender date, which 2020 COVID, you already know, that's what everybody's waiting for. So once we know who's going to come off the market for that, then things are going to start ramping up and kicking up in that department. With a lot of talk, a lot of conversation being that the Yankees are going to get rid of their catcher, which is crazy that Gary Sanchez might get non-tendered, but maybe that's best for him. Maybe being with the Yankees just isn't for him. In other AL East news, the Toronto Blue Jays are in serious discussions and negotiations with the agents for George Springer. But so are the Mets. The Mets pretty much have George Springer number 1 on their board right now, which I would have thought he would have been number 2, considering we need a catcher, but it's not a glaring need. Not a glaring need, especially with James McCann out there, who obviously looks like a good option, solid option, can play defense, can hit. He's an above average hitter, but he's not a superstar. He's not what JT is. But again, this all falls on what JT wants. And can we convince him to come to us on a lesser deal so we can still bring in Springer, so we can still bring in Trevor Bauer and just pull a trifecta? You get what I mean? So that's to be seen. But Toronto is really trying to make noise. They saw what Toronto did and they feel like they're better than them. They saw what Tampa did. Tampa did, and they feel like they're better than them. So Tampa's whole nother thing where there's a possibility where Kevin Kiermaier and Blake Snell can be a package for teams that are looking for outfield help and pitching. So look out for that, especially if he's on the move. Maybe the Red Sox will jump in. Another David Price type of situation. So we'll see what happens with Tampa. The other news, the Mets. So apparently it came out that Chris Young was a leading candidate to be the new general manager. Somebody who's been working for major league offices, but hasn't really done anything to really, be a GM, hasn't really been a GM, hasn't really been in a front office situation. He's only worked for Major League Baseball in the commissioner's office. So pretty much bringing him would be a pet project, which Steve Cohen kind of came out and said, I'm not here to really have anybody learn on my dime. So he's really looking for experience and to get the ball rolling. He wants to be competitive in 3 to 5 years. So you want somebody who's been there, done that. So we'll see who that guy is. But reports came out yesterday that he dropped out. He wasn't interested. Geographically, it wasn't where he wanted to go. He didn't want to move because of family, and just kind of odd that comes up when his name comes out as a front runner, and then people are like, but why? It's just goes hand in hand. His name comes up as a leading candidate, and then, reporters in the New York media just decided to jump all over that, saying he's new. Why would the Mets go for another new GM, someone with no experience? And I guess that scared him off. But Andy Martino comes and puts out a tweet that says that apparently the 3 to 5 year window that Steve Cohen put out is too intimidating for guys. Like, listen, scratch that. I don't care who you are. If you're not coming to New York City to compete, get out. I don't even know what you're trying to do, why you're trying to be a general manager in Major League Baseball. This is a marquee team in a marquee market. Just because the Mets have been the lovable losers for a while doesn't mean that right now they're not transitioning to being a powerhouse in the National League. I mean, we've seen how the Mets can steal New York from the Yankees. They done it in 2015. They did it in 2016. It can happen. So it's not impossible. So for anybody to be afraid of that, I'm sorry. And what I love the most is Steve Cohen is out here saying the truth. Listen, I don't want you here if you're not ready for that kind of pressure. There's pressure anyways, whether we're losing or winning. When the Mets were bad, it was pressure to come in and do the job. Now that there's legit pressure because this is a legit contending team that is going to make some moves and you're scared, miss me with that. I'm sorry. It's either you're coming here to try to win and compete or you're not. Anybody would jump at the chance to go and GM for the Dodgers, GM for the Yankees, GM for the Red Sox, GM for a team in a marquee city in a big market. So miss me with all that. Steve Cohen is the richest owner in Major League Baseball, ready to bring in the wrath. And you telling me you want none? You don't want the smoke? Listen, just like the show, it's called The Work. So if you're not ready to come get this work, we're moving on. Because we're going to find somebody who wants the work, who wants the smoke, who's ready to give the smoke to any team in Major League Baseball. So, again, miss me with all that. I'm not here for all that. So, again, non-tender date is December 2nd, which is tomorrow. And we'll see where we go from there. A couple key things. I wouldn't mind seeing the Mets bring in Justin Turner, kind of redemption kind of thing. Give him a 1-year deal just to solidify third base for now. Leave McNeil at second. Get George Springer to play center field. Depending on what Real Muto wants, you go with Real Muto or McCann. So we have our pick of the litter there. I believe we're front runners in either or. And I heard there's possibility to trade for Salvador Perez or Yadi Molina. So those are the 4 catchers I expect to be on the Mets 2021. Yadi and Molina, Salvador Perez, JT Realmuto, or James McCann. My bet, James McCann is the guy. Because Trevor Bauer is going to get a big deal from the Mets. He's going to come here. He's going to pitch for us. Our rotation is going to be solid, nasty, full of a bunch of people that want smoke. So just think of those names. Justin Turner, George Springer, James McCann, Trevor Bauer, and then just load up the bullpen, and we're ready to play some ball. We're ready to try to win a championship. And just get that bench loaded up. Well, whoever's getting non-tendered, those are 1-year deals, 2-year deals, depending on how good they are. Come ride the bench. Come play for us. So that'll do it for this episode of The Work. I'm your host, Rompe, and don't forget to come get this work. Thanks for watching The Work on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell after you subscribe to get the notifications. Also, like and please leave a comment. And lastly, don't forget to come get this work.